David, I probably should say, I am in my office this morning, so
Oh, okay.
uh yeah, at any moment something might pull me away, okay?
Okay.
Hopefully that's not the case.
Yeah. Well, we've all got issues here. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
Bill's got his name up here, but I don't see him.
Trying to connect.
Yep. Did you do you know that Steve Watson is down there in your hospital?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he's got apparently pretty severe colorectal cancer.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh,
Yeah. Kind of a surprise, but
that's terrible. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
What's terrible?
Hey, morning, Bill.
Morning, Adam.
Steve Watson has apparently pretty severe colorectal cancer.
Oh,
So,
oh my.
so we're all kind of waiting to hear.
Yeah,
So, how are you this morning, Bill?
I'm good. I continue to have this back issue, but which has been bothering me this morning, but seems to be loosening up right now. So
And where is this in your back?
low back, and I just got some X-rays done and took them to my chiropractor, and he's actually pretty optimistic. He says overall my spine looks better than it did when he started working on me 3 years ago or so, and but the tailbone is out of whack, and he thinks he can fix it. Three
Well,
years ago, he was concerned that it might degenerate or get screwed up to the point that I might need a rod separating the vertebrae. So if he's optimistic, I'm going to be optimistic too. So
good. Yeah.
Good.
Well, I hope that works. Um, does he give you exercises to do?
yeah, I have a bunch of exercises, and one of the things you showed me a long time ago for plantar fasciitis, that
Yeah.
sort of stretch, standing stretch. You put
Uh-huh.
put your weight on your back foot with one foot forward and just go down and up a few times. I
Yeah.
continue to do that. That's one of the most helpful tips I've had. So,
Well, good. Yeah, I found uh, doing stretches regularly that are appropriate for my back really have been very helpful, along with focusing the qigong practice there too.
Mhm.
So, well, gentlemen, you're it. Bill, Joanne is traveling today to a meeting, so she couldn't be here, and Bill Nagel has developed sinus infection and said he's pretty down and out this morning. So
All
I
right.
am, however, recording.
Sounds good.
Well, if you can remember what that sounds like, it was very good this morning. So, questions, comments? How you doing in your practice? I'm not answering life
yeah.
questions today.
I I did have a funny question practicing yesterday. I did something which I should have been doing all along. I've been playing one of the chakra things this week, which makes a big difference too. Is a more peaceful experience, I think. But my question is, could you talk about lengthening in and lengthening out, particularly in 3 when we go from 6 to 12 and from 12 to 3, or vice versa? What's the when we're at the height, the 12 versus 6 and 3 as we're stretching out, just that it occurred to me that there's more in that transition than I may be doing or thinking about.
That's a tough one. That whole movement is, in some ways, at least for me, has been perhaps the most difficult in the group. So as you're going, let's say you have lengthened out at 3. As you go through 6, you are lengthening in. And then when you come to 9, you're lengthening out. And then you're lengthening in through 12 and out at 3.
Okay.
And that's, what would you like me to tell you about that?
Well, part of it is at 12, I'm feeling like, because I'm upright and everything, that, I'm connecting up and I'm connecting down, and I'm feeling, I'm not feeling lengthening in there. What I think I've been doing without thinking about it a whole lot is doing a lengthening in and then out, like if I'm moving from 6 to 12, it'll be, at 9 to 12. At about 10:30, I'm in, and about 12, I'm back out again. So,
Yep.
but
that is the difficult part of this. Let me change my camera and I believe me, I completely understand what you're saying. You're out at 9, and the problem here is that you have, as you're doing this part of the circle, you have to bend. You have to get the bend of the spine, and you also have to get the lengthening in and the twisting in. It's all, and closing. It's all happening through that section. So when you go up to 12, obviously it's going to be small and subtle, and more so than it is at 6. But nonetheless, as you go on up here, you have to bend and twist and lengthen in order to be able to extend and twist and lengthen out. And as you indicated, certainly going through 6 is much easier than going through 12. You just have to try to accept in your body and feel in your body that going up through the top of the circle doesn't necessarily mean extending out. It just means you're going through the top of the circle.
Mm.
It's kind of like, you know, what comes to my mind is that it's like, wait a minute, I went away and I should have stayed there. What it reminds me of is in Master Joe's 8 Gates, the single arm practice. When you get to this point, when you get to this point, and you're going to trace this S curve, but keep turning back in one direction all the way through that S curve. It's like, wait a minute, shouldn't your body be moving with the movement? No, it doesn't have to. And so in a way, that's sort of what we're experiencing here, is that we don't necessarily have to be sinking in order to bend and lengthen in. You can also do all of that as you're rising.
Mm.
Does that help you at all?
Well, yeah, I have to toss out all my practice up till now and revise it.
Oh, well, that points to my not having taught very well then.
No, I will not put that. I won't send that direction. I'll send it on the receiver end of things. But
Well, if it clarifies that for you, that's really good.
Mm.
Anything for you, Adam?
No questions. I just kind of keep discovering, I guess, more layers inside the body.
Yes.
Very interesting. It always feels like a moving target every time I think I, have found the Dantian. I think, well, seem to discover maybe not quite yet, especially in 5 and 6.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it has also been doing a lot of physical therapy and a lot of heat therapy, which is slowly unlocking a lot of really tight muscular tissues in the hips and back.
Good.
But it seems to be increasing the awareness of that area. So I guess it's working, is the report. But no real questions. I think a lot of it is, understanding what I'm trying to do, just not quite fully embodying it yet. Which is the name of the game, right?
It is
the
the name
struggle.
of the game. I wish I could make it easier and simpler, but
Well,
no.
yeah, it's all part of the fun. So.
Unfortunately not. Yeah, and the I guess I've said this before, but I'll say it again. It just takes time.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been working on this for years, and I'm still unlocking layers, as you say, and finding that even though I feel like I've made a lot of progress, that there is a lot more that I can do. And it just keeps on going. And I will say, you'll understand this a little better when we get all the way through this God's training, but there is so much in this that you can spend the rest of your life, I think, and probably never come to the end of it. And there is a meditative practice, really, that goes even beyond what I'm capable of teaching you. So there's a lot to this. This is not beginning.
Mhm.
There you
Sure.
go. So I guess one of my questions would be, do you feel like you're beginning to, or really have a sense of what lengthening feels like, both out and in?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so, yeah.
I guess
It's
go ahead, Bill.
it's easier with the extremities than, although I think it works in the spine as well. Yeah, I feel like, there may be more beyond the skeletal piece that I don't have a clue about, but in terms of extremities especially, and the spine, I do feel like that happens.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Good.
I feel like when put my intention on lengthening in and out, my sensation of the energy is different. So I feel like there's some success there.
Mm-hmm. What's different?
Feels like it generally has a direction to it. If I don't focus specifically on lengthening, my sensation of the energy almost just feels like the body being supported in a pool of salt water where you're a little more buoyant.
Mm-hmm.
But with lengthening, it feels almost like the energy and body being kind of pulled like taffy or silly string in a way. Um, and then lengthening in kind of feels like that, but coming back in towards the center of the body.
Uh-huh. Good.
Yeah.
Um,
I think I'm a little sloppy with the lengthening out. I can definitely feel that. The lengthening in, for me, I don't think I'm entirely successful with that, because I think I just sort of relax in and compress a little bit. It may not be as energetic as the lengthening out.
yeah, both of them really take time, but the lengthening in is certainly much more difficult for most of us than the lengthening out. The thing we really need to avoid in lengthening is making it happen,
Mm.
because as soon as you put effort into it, it begins to tighten up and you restrict what could possibly happen. And that's particularly true. I mean, we tend to, want to, when we're going out, to make it go out, and rather than just letting it release, letting it go, letting it feel where that is.
Mm.
And the lengthening in, because it's more difficult, we have to let that release in, feel it just drawing in, and not just collapse. That sometimes that's our tendency with lengthening in, if we're not feeling it, but staying open to that response to having lengthened out is really where you find the feeling of lengthening in, I think.
Mm.
So, and so one of the things, that it's really important to develop is feeling that spring in lengthening out and lengthening in. I mean, it is like a spring movement. And so it's really important to keep on, working until you begin to develop a clear sense of what that is, rather than just waving your arms around. But when you really connect with the lengthening, one of the things is that you may find that you get more tired practicing when you're doing the lengthening, because if you really are connecting, you're connecting through to the spine, and it simply initially just takes more effort because of that engagement. So when you're first practicing, or when you really feel you're beginning to feel this, you want to do as many as you can properly. But if you get to a point where you feel like you just can't do the lengthening anymore, it's better to just continue to do the movement, not give up and stop, but continue to do the movement until you've done the number of repetitions you're working on. Of course, ideally 20 or whatever it may be. Unless, of course, if you have a physical limitation, and then, of course, you have to pay attention to that. So if you know how to do Taoist breathing, longevity breathing, I highly recommend making sure that you're using that as much as you can, because that actually helps doing the lengthening. And as you're making your hands go up and down, I think you're clear about what you're trying to do, and I'm just going to yes, of course. So when you're doing movement 1, you are, of course, lengthening out to go up, and you're lengthening in as you come in and down. And lengthening out. So I know really you know that already, but I just wanted to make sure you were clear about that. So you're trying to get the sense of lengthening from inside of you out, and then lengthening back in. But we also come to the issue of how much puff, how much lengthening have you got? Which does not say that all of the time that you're going to have 50% of your movement be lengthening out and 50% lengthening in, because maybe you just have a lot more lengthening out this day inside of you, and then you have lengthening in. But what you want to do is find some way that half of your movement is lengthening in and half of it is lengthening out. And some of this is going to be determined not only by what your arms do, it's going to be where along your spine is it that something goes wrong, some glitch develops. It's not just that your movements are not 50-50, because there's some sort of mental resistance. Some of it can just be because there's something going on with your spine. And it can be that you do 4 movements, and this thing in your spine doesn't start until you get to the 5th, or maybe it doesn't start till you get to the 15th. So what does that mean? So it just simply means that you have to begin to really feel what's going on in your body. So as you begin to make the change, and I'll be happier if I change my camera again. I seem to like doing that, don't I? So one of the places that it is really kind of easy to begin to work on this next concept is when you go into 2. So you get down to the end of 1, and you begin to lengthen in as you start 2, and then you lengthen out. And you're lengthening in. And you're lengthening out. And now the thing that you're trying to really feel here is, do you have enough lengthening out to go all the way out to here, or do you run out about here? And if you do, if you run out about here, then start your lengthening in. And try to feel that lengthening in. Does it go all the way here? And then, oh, and I ran out again. Well, that's okay. Maybe your lengthening in actually ends here. So you have to think about starting lengthening out. So the point is to really begin to feel in your body, where are those transition points? How much lengthening do you have? And not just forcing yourself to do the movement, but indeed trying to find really where the actual transition points are. So it's a question of, when do you run out of puff, as it were? Then your arms are bending in and circling out. And so you just have to really find where that transition point is for you. The point is that 1/2 of the movement is bending and closing, and 1/2 of the movement is straightening and opening. And that's the main point. Now, as you go through different times in your life, you have accidents, or you have something happening inside your internal organs, or you have a super amount of stress. So exactly where these opening and closing points are can change, because you're running out of puff. Your body is naturally going to feel that it wants to close, and maybe it feels like it naturally wants to open. So go with it. That's fine, as long as it's half bend and half straight, half stretch. That's the essential issue, not exactly where you do it. Kind of an interesting side note, Bruce told us that when he learned how to do this, he learned over 200 distinctly different ways that it could be done to produce different effects in the body. So you don't want to get fixated that your hands have to be exactly out to a position, because you also could do it where you finish closing a little bit up from that or a little bit down from that. And so try to stay open to what you're actually feeling. Now, what is determining this is a very simple principle. When you begin, where is your body locked up? And what will allow you to unlock it? If you start going through the layers of why people get locked up, be surprised how many layers there are. And it is not that it's necessarily the same every day. You get through that first layer and that's locking your insides up. And guess what? There's going to be another layer that's locking your insides up. But that may necessitate that you do the movements slightly differently. So you're now learning to do something that is artful. You're learning to trust what your body is telling you it needs. Not that someone says it must be blah, 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 but all Qigong was originally done this way. It's just trying to say that is never what it was originally. It never was that you should do it how someone else told you you should. But the ability to recognize what the qi in your body is telling you it needs is no small ability. It's a big thing. Currently, just in this time, people don't trust themselves about 3/4 of the time. We're living in an age of doubt right now. You could almost not trust half of what's going on around you because you don't know what it's going to do tomorrow. But you can trust what's inside of you. In the Indian traditions, for example, the phrase they like to use, it's covering essentially the same point, but from a different angle and Indian culture, is you have to trust your inner guru telling you what you need at a certain time. So if you can learn how to trust what your body's energy is telling you to do, you will start having a much better cooperative relationship between your mind and your body. Because usually what happens is the body is telling you to do one thing and your mind is telling you another. And so you do another and then things get tricky. And now you're trying to figure out which one is more important. And the truth is, that's not a long-term solution. For example, if someone has a disease like cancer, and Bruce was a cancer doctor, he actually treated terminal patients who were expected to die within a month or so. At times it took him a long time to get people to trust exactly how they had to do what they had to do. But they had to learn to trust themselves. And a lot of them just wanted to trust somebody else. And it is difficult taking responsibility for yourself, but they had to go through that process to arrive finally at, I'm feeling this and this and this, and I should do it that way. And then they would add, but I don't understand it. And Bruce's response was, I don't understand the 12 million factors that are creating this moment in time. But there is an innate intelligence inside you that will show you where you've changed from one to the other. Part of the process of this is also why Gods is a bridge between Qigong and meditation, because the ability for you to learn to trust what is inside you is a fundamental stage of development in meditation. One of the hardest things in this world as a meditator is going through, I want to understand why. Well, you want to understand why the universe is doing what it's doing in this moment. One could frame this, how big an egomaniac do you want to be? Do you think you're a god? If you're a god and you understand the entire universe, you can understand all of it. Otherwise, you're playing around with the best odds. But there's something inside you that's an intelligence that will tell you which way to go, regardless of whether you understand why it's happening. And to develop that ability is a great thing. So if you understand this point I'm making, it is not an exact place where you transfer from extend to bend and bend to extend. You'll play around with this and you'll be doing it for 20 times, and maybe your teacher will walk by and say, you might want to try changing over here, because they can see that that might be a better place for you. But you want to try and find your own better way. And this is part of the famous old Chinese phrase, you give someone a fish and you feed them for a day. And you teach them to fish and you feed them for life. So your teacher tells you what to do and it works for a few minutes. But if you get to trust your insides and trust what they're telling you, now you have something to carry you through your entire life. So what I'd like you to do is to get up and do a flow and really try to feel where these changeover points are. Where do you really need to go from bend to stretch, from open to close, from lengthening out and lengthening in? Okay.
Okay.
Good. So what did you discover? What were the problems? With thinking about that.
3 was a problem.
Yeah, 3 was a problem for both of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I found 3 difficult to connect with the transition point for lengthening in and out. All of the other ones felt much easier. And I can't say why. I almost felt like it was foggy where the transition point should be. Even though that wasn't the point of the exercise, it felt difficult to connect with kind of where things crossed over. But I think 3 is a challenging one for some of the reasons we talked about. Like where you're supposed to be lengthening in at the top, even though that seems counterintuitive to what your body's physically doing.
Right.
I think some of the other ones felt much easier, and it felt like the first few movements took a little bit of exploring to find out where that transition point wanted to be. But once you found it, it felt like it established a pretty good rhythm to the movement. I found focusing on it that way also really set a pace where I could connect with the energy. But it felt like if you didn't stay in the moment with where that transition point happened, it really interfered with the kind of the flow and pace of the energy moving. Sort of like how the with the lengthening, we talk about that elastic reboundness, like that rebound sort of happened at a pace that it wanted to move at, and trying to change that really change your ability to connect with the energy.
Interesting. Good. Bill?
I agree. 3 is still the biggest challenge. I think the lengthening out, I would tend to do too quickly, and my lengthening in is more just at this point. Most of the time, it seems like it's just not lengthening out. It's just I'm not really very intentional about the lengthening in, and having it happen gradually versus the breath and twisting and stuff. I'm right now, and there may be more. I'm sure there's more to it than this. I was taking the transition points for the breathing and the twisting. I'm using that as the transition point also for the lengthening in or out. And which seems to make sense and feels right. But I found the lengthening out, I was already out long before I got to the transition points a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time.
So I'm going to show you what I think may help you in 3, but both of you. It's interesting. It really appeared that both of you were having similar issues with 3. And part of it is timing. Part of it definitely was the spine, the action of the spine. As a matter of fact, it pretty much felt like the spine got lost in 3. And so let me try to show you what, and also I'll talk about the timing too. So let me. So first, just talking about timing for a minute. I think when we first worked on 3, as a matter of fact, the beginning way of thinking about the timing in 3 is that you are going out from 12 through 3 and in to 6 and then out to 9 into 12. Actually, as you begin to be able to lengthen your breaths in particular, you really want to begin to think about going when you after you have gone to 3, you want to think about actually going in all the way through 6 and part way, wherever that transition is between 6 and 9, and then expanding out, and then going back in again all the way until you feel that change and extend out. So it ends up with a much longer in section than out. The out is a more, in a way, not in a way, it is a more forceful out. It is a shorter part of it, but so this is a case where that 50-50 I talked about in terms of the 2 different sections of lengthening. Here, that's not the case. Here, the full lengthening out occurs, and then you have lengthening in, out, in, out. And one of the really important parts of this movement is getting the bending of the spine. And the bending of the spine from 9 to 3 or 3 to 9, whichever direction you're going, is much more difficult than it is in the lower half of the circle. Oh, sorry. I forgot to plug in my computer, and I better do that or we're going to disconnect.
Need those electrons.
Okay. So that's part of the real difficulty, I think, in 3 is getting, after you have done your lengthening out, extending out, straightening of the spine, as you do the upper half in particular, getting the bend of the spine and the lengthening in, back in, so that you can lengthen out again at the other side. And then the lower half is not so difficult, but you've got to get that bend of the spine so that you have it to open and lengthen out. And of course, that runs through the other postures too, but it becomes really critical here in 3. Does that raise questions, answer questions?
Just to make sure I understand it. So the lengthening and the breathing should be synced up as you extend that out, right?
Yep.
Okay.
So any element where you don't have enough puff, if you will,
Yeah.
can determine what the speed or length of that long section is.
Mhm.
At this point, it shouldn't be too hard to get at least a somewhat longer inhale through.
I don't think I don't think the breathing's the issue. I think saving some of the lengthening is the issue. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
Especially, I felt like I could only connect with the lengthening at kind of one speed. But I'm sure we're probably hopeful to one day be able to lengthen at whatever speed we want, right? And really slow that down, both
Yeah,
in and out.
think about it in the form.
Yeah. And or vice versa, have moments of rapid lengthening in and out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Okay.
Bill?
Yeah, I think it was helpful. I think having the lengthening out be quicker and realizing that goes along with the breath and the twisting and everything else that's going on with it is a big help. That the duration of lengthening out is shorter. It maybe starts a little later than I have been doing because I've been more or less equalizing them.
Yep. Well, that's how we start that. And so this would be a good time to begin to work towards the more unequal. So this is the one posture where the two parts are not equal.
Mm-hmm.
The other postures, they are.
Mm-hmm.
Even in posture 7, which you don't know yet, but it's equal. Good.
Nice.
Any last minute thoughts or questions?
Good lesson. Thank you, David.
Sure.
Yeah.
I almost felt like my first question, about 3/4 of what you'd prepared, seemed to be answering my first question about.
Interesting how these things cross here.
Yeah, right.
So the next class is the beginning of a new session, just to throw out to you.
Okay.
And I hope you have a good couple of weeks, and whatever your problems may be, that they smooth out.
Yeah, you too, David.
Thank you.
And back to Wednesday next week, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
Take care.
Take care.
Take care, Bill.
Bye, Bill.
And David, I think I'm gonna hop off too.
Oh.
I gotta get back to my duties here
Okay.
at the office.
Well, you can take all of this into the form.
Yeah. I'll see if I can get there in person next week.
Okay, great.
Yeah,
Love to see you.
hopefully. Yeah. All right. Well, good luck with the tenant. Hopefully you find someone.
Well, you too.
Yeah. The race is on.
We do have a couple of what sound like good, interesting women coming to look at. So,
Okay. I've had a few people express interest, but I don't know. No one I'm too excited about. So we'll see.
well, good luck to both of us.
Yeah, that's right. All right. Take care. Have a good weekend, David.
You too. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.